Today I'm showing you step by step how to create this next level strawberry cheesecake. I'll walk you through my entire cake design and recipe development process for creating a modern version of one of the most traditional cakes, showing you how I take the cheesecake from classic to iconic. My name is Louise and I'm a self-taught cake artist and recipe developer. Welcome to another episode of my baking series, From Classic to Iconic, where I turn classic desserts into modern Entremet cakes. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a modern version of one of the most classic desserts, the strawberry cheesecake. I've elevated the traditional cheesecake by introducing more textures and adding a modern touch by turning it into an Entremet cake. I'm going to show you the process behind developing this cake recipe, my thoughts behind recreating one of the most classic desserts, the strawberry cheesecake, and how I created a version unlike any cheesecake you've seen before. To make this cake, I'm also going to show you how to master the following techniques: a crumbly biscuit base, a crunchy caramel and feuilletine layer, a smooth baked cheesecake insert, a silky strawberry gel, a creamy fresh strawberry compote, a rich cream cheese mousse, and a shiny mirror glaze. And if you want to bake the cake at home, you'll find the full recipe on my website, which you can access with a subscription. Now, we're gonna create the following layers: biscuit base, caramel and feuilletine crunch, baked cheesecake insert, strawberry gel, fresh strawberry compote, cream cheese mousse, mirror glaze, fresh strawberries with strawberry topping, and chocolate decoration. If you want to learn more about how to make elegant, layered and delicious Entremet cakes, you can now check out my online course, Master Entremet Cakes at Home, where I show you how to create professional quality cakes from start to finish, right from your own kitchen. Inside the course, I teach you my 5-step formula that I use for all my cakes: cake base, crunch, creamy element, mousse and decoration. You'll also learn how to make 5 of my signature Entremet cakes, different glazing techniques, discover recipe development and cake design, and also receive PDF troubleshooting guides and Excel recipe course material, giving you everything you need to start creating your own cakes at home. To recreate the classic cheesecake, I of course had to include the 2 main elements you know from a cheesecake: a classic biscuit base and cheesecake. This biscuit base adds a wonderful crumbly texture that pairs perfectly with the other creamy layers that we will make for this strawberry cheesecake. I make the biscuit base by first blending biscuits into crumbs, mixing in melted butter, salt and a bit of lemon zest to add some freshness to the layer. I then spread the biscuit base in a pastry ring, level the surface with a glass, and put the cake in the fridge while preparing the next layer. A traditional cheesecake doesn't have crunch, and I didn't want to stay too far from the classic eating experience. Yet, I do think that a crunchy element would elevate the cake as long as it's balanced with the other layers, which is why I ended up adding a thin layer of caramel and feuilletine crunch. To make the crunch, I start out by melting caramel chocolate. The caramel flavor here acts as a mild flavor contrast to the cream cheese and strawberry flavor in this cake. We then mix in feuilletine, biscuit cream, salt and a bit of lemon zest just to add a bit of freshness to the layer. I spread the crunch on top of the biscuit base, level the surface with a glass and a spoon, and put the cake in the fridge while preparing the next layer. The very hero element of this cake is of course the cheesecake. A lot of modern cheesecakes are non-baked cheesecakes, but I wanted to make a super rich and creamy cheesecake element, which in my opinion you only really can get if you make a baked cheesecake. So I'm here making my favorite baked cheesecake as a cake insert. To make the cheesecake, I start out by mixing cream cheese and icing sugar with a hand mixer until creamy. I then add sugar and flour and mix again to combine. I pour in sour cream to balance the rich cream cheese as well as vanilla paste and mix again to combine. Lastly, I whisk in eggs and also egg yolks. I decided to add a bit of egg yolks to this recipe to make the cheesecake even more creamy. I pour the cake in a silicone mold, pour hot water around the mold and bake the cake for 15 minutes at 175 degrees. I then turn the oven down to 160 degrees and bake the cheesecake for another 20 to 27 minutes until it's set in the side and has a jiggle in the middle. I let the cake cool off at the kitchen counter and then put it in the freezer so it can set. Once it's set enough, I place it on top of the crunch layer that I've brushed with a little melted chocolate to make the layers stick to each other. Then we can put the cake in the freezer where the surface needs to set before we can add the next layer. We of course cannot have a strawberry cheesecake without any strawberry elements. Initially, I considered adding a strawberry creme, but I decided against that because a creme also contains white chocolate, which makes the strawberry flavor a bit less prominent. So instead, I decided to make a strawberry gel to get the purest flavor. I here start out by soaking gelatin in cold water. I then heat strawberry puree and sugar almost to a boil. Take it off the heat and stir in the soaked gelatin. The gel is poured into a bowl where it needs to cool off a bit, as a too hot gel can melt the cheesecake. In order not to poke a hole in the cheesecake, I pour the gel over the cake by using the backside of a spoon and then stir the cake to distribute the gel evenly. We can now put the cake in the freezer where it needs to set before we can add the last cake insert. To add a second layer of strawberry flavor, as this after all is a strawberry cheesecake, I decided to add a layer of fresh strawberry compote. This layer contains a lot of fresh strawberries that perfectly balances the rich cheesecake and the biscuit base. I make the compote by first cutting fresh strawberries into cubes. We then heat strawberry puree to the boiling point before adding sugar and pectin. The mixture needs to cook until the puree is very thick and sticking to the whisker before taking the pot off the heat. I let it cool off slightly so it doesn't add heat to the strawberries and then mix in the fresh strawberries. I spread the compote on top of the set strawberry gel, level the layer, and put the cake back in the freezer where it needs to freeze overnight. Now that all the cake inserts are done, I wanted to emphasize the cream cheese flavor further in the mousse, as the main flavor of a cheesecake of course is cream cheese. I wanted this mousse to have the consistency of a traditional mousse and not just to be a no-bake cream cheese filling, as that would give the cake a different consistency and not an airy consistency from a mousse. I therefore decided to add a bit of white chocolate, as this helps stabilize the texture and gives the mousse a more rounded flavor. I here start out by melting white chocolate and putting it aside. I then move on to soaking gelatin, heating heavy cream, vanilla and lemon juice almost to a boil. The lemon juice helps adjust the sweetness of the mousse and also add some freshness. We can now mix in gelatin in the hot cream before it's poured over the white chocolate mixture. I'm then mixing cream cheese and icing sugar, where I increase the amount of cream cheese as I wanted this to be the most prominent taste of the mousse. Then I incorporate the cream cheese to the mixture. While this cools to lukewarm, I'm whipping heavy cream to a lightly whipped foam and gently fold it into the chocolate/cream cheese mixture. I pour the mousse in a silicone mold with a tall acetate baking sheet with the strawberry compote facing downwards. Then the cake needs to freeze completely overnight. To make a visual design that resembles the classic cheesecake, I decided to add some biscuit base elements, as the visual elements of a traditional cheesecake is biscuit and cream cheese. I make the biscuit bases in the same way as earlier, where I flip biscuits into crumbs and mix in melted butter and salt. I wanted to create a large biscuit base to go under the cake and also a smaller one to go on top of the cake. So I first spread the biscuit base in a large 20 cm diameter pastry ring that will go under the cake and level the surface with a glass. It's important that the biscuit base is fully straight, as the cake otherwise will make the biscuit base crack. I then spread the rest of the biscuit crumbs in a small pastry ring, level the surface, and put both biscuit bases in the freezer. The other visual element you'll see on a traditional cheesecake is, of course, the cream cheese. I therefore decided to make an off-white mirror glaze, as this color visually represents the cheesecake inside and will look well balanced in combination with the red colors I'll add to the design later on. I make the glaze by first putting chopped chocolate in a tall jug. I then soak gelatin sheets in cold water and put it aside while preparing the syrup. In a pot, I'm heating sugar, water, heavy cream and glucose syrup almost to a boil, whisking in the soaked gelatin before pouring it over the white chocolate. I mix with an immersion hand blender, add a bit of white food coloring paste and mix again. Then the glaze needs to cool to 34 to 35 degrees before we can glaze the cake. Once the glaze has cooled, I place the fully frozen cake on a baking cooling rack and pour the 34 to 35 degrees hot glaze over the cake. Due to the temperature differences, the glaze will stick and cover the cake nicely with a shiny surface. While the glaze drips off, I place the frozen large biscuit base on a cake plate. I now gently place the cake on top of the biscuit base using 2 angled palette knives and a meat needle to release the cake. And then we are ready to add the rest of the decoration. Since this is a strawberry cheesecake, I also wanted the cake design to visually represent the strawberries. I'm therefore decorating the cake with red chocolate ribbons that will go around the cake and also on top of the cake. I first place the widest ribbon around the cake and the second largest around the cake. Before we add the last chocolate ribbons, I place the small frozen biscuit base on top of the cake. Now we can place the 2 smaller chocolate ribbons on top of the biscuit base. And then we are ready for the final assembling of the cake. A traditional strawberry cheesecake often contains fresh strawberries with strawberry topping, so that's what I wanted to recreate here. I'm making a strawberry glaze that will add even more strawberry flavor to the cake and cover the berries in a beautiful red glaze. I make the glaze by first mixing cornstarch and water. I then mix strawberry puree, sugar, cornstarch and lemon juice and heat it until the mixture starts to thicken. The glaze now needs to cool a bit before we can brush it on the strawberries. While it cools off, I cut the top off fresh strawberries, cut them in half and decorate the ring on top of the cake, first with the half strawberries and then with whole strawberries in the middle. We can now brush the berries with the strawberry glaze for that extra shine. And here we have the final strawberry cheesecake that I think looks exactly like a cheesecake, just in an Entremet version. I love how this elegant cake design really shows what's inside, with biscuits, cream cheese and strawberries, which resembles the elements from the classic cheesecake, taking this traditional cake from classic to iconic. To me, this really is an elevated version of the classic cheesecake because we have the main elements we know from a traditional cheesecake, the biscuit base, but elevated with a bit of crunch, a super smooth baked cheesecake insert in combination with the gel and the strawberry compote that also adds some new textures with a rich cream cheese mousse. All in all, taking the traditional cheesecake from classic to iconic. I hope you get the chance to make this amazing cheesecake at home. And if you like my videos, make sure to subscribe. You can also check out my Entremet cake playlist here. See you in the next video.